أهلا وسهلا. Right now I'm going to talk about الفعل الأجوف في المجزوم, hollow verbs that come after لم in the jussive or majzoom case in formal Arabic. In this video I'm going to assume that you have a good knowledge and understanding of how to conjugate present tense verbs, including present tense hollow verbs, and that you also have a good understanding of how to use لم and a فعل مضارع مجزوم to conjugate a past tense sentence in the negative in formal Arabic. If you need a refresher on any of those ideas, we have separate videos that you can head back and take a look at before we start this one. For reasons that I'll explain, hollow verbs in the majzoom case, that modified version of the present tense that we use after lam, can sometimes drop their middle vowel depending on the conjugation. Over here I've got a chart conjugated for the verb zar, to visit, in both marfu'a, our regular default formal Arabic present tense case, and also in majzoom. Over here, as you can see in marfu'a, we have a dhamma as a case ending on a lot of our conjugations, and over here we have a sukoon instead. If we're constructing a regular affirmative sentence, of course, we're going to use marfu'a. So if we want to say, he is visiting the city, we would say, يزور المدينة. And if it were fully vocalized formal Arabic, we would have a dhamma here. That's just typical with marfu'a. But now, if we wanted instead to say he did not visit the city in formal Arabic, we would need to use that particle lam. And then something interesting happens with the yazur. We might think, okay, we have yazur, same thing. The only thing that needs to change is that we add the sukoon. But then we have a little problem, because technically, if we fully vocalized this word, the waw and the ra would both have sukoon on them. And the rules of formal Arabic don't allow us to have two letters back to back that both have sukoon. It's just a rule. We can't have those consonant clusters. Again, colloquial Arabic is a different story, but in formal Arabic, that's a no-no. It's just against the rules. So instead, what we need to do is we drop that waw, and instead we retain that dhamma here. That's sort of a substitute for the waw. And we have lam yazur with a short vowel, lam yazur, instead of la yazur with that long waw. If you take a look at this chart over here, most but not all of the conjugations in majzoom have dropped that waw and added a sukoon instead. There are a couple of exceptions. Here, for example, in the NT conjugation, second person singular feminine, we have that long ya at the end. So we've dropped that nun that we would have in marfu'a, but we retain the ya, and because we have the ra afterward with the vowel, tazuri, we don't have the problem of two sukoons back to back. And that's pretty much the case with every single conjugation that has a waw as part of the present tense conjugation for a particular subject, like enti or any of the duals, or entum or hum. We still have the waw in the middle. The one exception that's sort of interesting is with the feminine plural conjugations that we would use for groups of human women. In these cases, even in the marfu'a, we don't have that waw, because if we had it, it would violate the same rules of formal Arabic. Tazurna, if we fully vocalize this antunna conjugation, if we had a waw in there, we would have the same problem, two sukuns together. So even in marfu'a, we skip the waw. The same idea, the same principle, the same order of operations works for any other hollow verb that we're going to conjugate in majzoom. So if we wanted to use ba'a, yabi'a, instead, we could do the same thing. We would just need to make sure that that short vowel substitute matches the long vowel sound. So if we wanted to say, she didn't sell the car, we could say lam, and then tabi'a with a long tabi'u with a long ya would be the marfu'a conjugation, but we would have to take that ya and drop it and add a little kasra instead in majzoom. Lam tabi'a as-sayyara. Or if I wanted to say, I didn't sleep well. Nama is an interesting verb because it has an alif as part of the present tense conjugation. So if I wanted to rephrase that idea in the past in formal Arabic, I could say lam, and then I would take anam, think, sukoon because of the majzoom, and there's a long vowel that also has sort of a hidden sukoon, so I need to drop something. I just drop that long vowel, and I wind up with anam. Lam anam jayidan. I didn't sleep well. This works for derived forms as well. Zar and ba' and nam are all form 1 verbs, but if we have a different form, the same principle apply. We just have to think about what the vowel is that we would be using in the present tense and make sure that it's represented as a short vowel instead of a long vowel if we have two sukoons bumping up next to each other. So if we wanted to use the formal verb istata'a to say he wasn't able to attend the party, ordinarily yastati'a with a long ya would be our conjugation, but with a lam and a majzoom we would have two sukoons. So what do? We get rid of that ya and we say lam yastati' an yahdur, etc. He wasn't able to attend the party. Or if we wanted to say you, anta, didn't choose an apartment yet, here we have ikhtar, yakhtar, this verb for choosing, and we retain that alif in the present tense conjugation in marfu'a, but in majzoom, for certain conjugations, like anta, I would need to turn that alif into a short vowel. Lam, takhtar, fatha instead of the long alif and a sukoon. Lam takhtar shaqqa ba'd. You didn't choose an apartment yet. In spoken colloquial Arabics, lam typically isn't used to negate the past. We're probably going to use ma or that ma-sheen combination. So instead of saying lam yazur al-Madina, we would say ma zar al-Madina or ma zarish al-Madina. But as advanced learners and users of Arabic, control of this little exception when we're negating sentences in the past is expected of us in our formal writing correspondence.